Welcome back to Busy Garden Life. I am in the garden today because it is a gorgeous fall day. So perfect weather to get out here and start getting the garden ready for next year. I know it's awfully sad when you have to start getting it ready for the following year. There's excitement of, all right, what am I going to do for next year to make it better in the springtime? But then there's also that sadness of the harvest season is coming to an end, and we're back to the winter months here in Michigan. So today, with the fall, getting things ready, starting in the fall, I am doing the strawberries first. So strawberries there's not really a best time of the year to do the strawberries from what I have found out. You could do this all in the spring. You could weed and get everything ready in the spring. There's nothing wrong with that. I tend to like to do it in the fall while I'm doing other fall cleanup. Once I get the rest of my tomatoes and peppers out of here, I'm actually just gonna release the chickens and allow them to kind of help get at some of the weeds. But the strawberry plants, because I have to get into them a little bit more, I want to hand weed them a little bit better. So the way that I take care of my strawberries, I tend to get a lot more berries throughout the rest of the year. I shouldn't say throughout the year, in the spring, right? So when strawberry season is coming up, we get quite a few strawberries with the method that I am using today in order to get them ready. All right, so first things first, let's go ahead and start weeding through here. We've got a big old row of weeds planted in the strawberries, so we've got to get digging. So let's get going with that first. So I weeded through most of the strawberries. I do have the end there where that big stalk still kind of lies, but I think I need to get a nice big shovel in order to get that. It's also one of those nettles, so it's very picky. I don't even know how in the world I allowed it to get that big, but I don't really take care of the strawberries during the summer. After they're done producing their berries and they're picked, I let them go and I focus on the rest of the garden. So that's kind of how that happened, but I've weeded pretty good for most of it. Take a look here. So you can see there's some empty areas here from where some of those bigger weeds were down on this end. The other end tends to be a lot more full. You can see there's some raspberry plants kind of button up next to them, but down on this end, the strawberries are much more full. So I started with like a 2 or 3 foot row, and look at just how much they have like moved out. So the next step after weeding, I like to weed first so that I can actually see what areas are bare, like down there, and then which ones are full. I like to take my shears, my pruning shears, and I am going to go through and I'm going to cut the plants, the runners away from the mother plants. All right, this has been great in producing more berries for all of your plants throughout the year. I gotta go find my shears. I don't know where I put them. The reason being is it's kind of like a tomato plant in some sense. You know, when you're doing your tomato plants and they start to produce the fruit, you want to cut away those suckers, because those suckers will take the nutrition away from the tomatoes, and you won't yield as many tomatoes. It's kind of the same thing for strawberries, right? So you have one mother plant that sends out runners, and they'll do it all summer long. So mine have really bushed out quite a bit this year. Now, some of my plants will produce 5 to 6 runners, and it'll just keep going. Now, you can't always get all of them unless you can see them all. I'm not going to be able to see them all. But what I like to do is kind of come in here, and let me see if I can show you. Kind of come in here, and you can see this nice, I have this mother plant here, or a plant. It doesn't even have to be a mother plant, right? Just a plant. And let me see, there's a runner there. You can see these small little branches here, and they're gonna branch out and they're producing other plants. Now, I don't necessarily know, I can follow it. Here's one. There's where one followed to. But you don't necessarily have to follow all of them to see where they're at. All I do is I like to come in here and clip them. I'm gonna clip all of those small little runner. And you know the difference because they are much smaller branches, right? So this one's kind of old and can be picked away. But this is a thicker branch. This is a nice thinner runner branch, all right? So that's how you kind of can tell the difference between it being part of the mother and the runner, all right? So here's another nice big plant here, and there's a ton of runners on this one as well. Again, some of them will shoot out. So I'm just gonna come in and I'm gonna clip some of these runners here. Okay, now when you do that, it's not just that big plant. So that runner, that little runner that was created might send off another runner, which might send off another runner. So you could get a 5 or 6 plant long runner. You can follow it if you want to. What I tend to do is just go through and just clip those little runner pieces all over. I don't necessarily try to follow them. I just look. Reason being, that mother plant will try to, over next year, will try to send a lot of the nutrients to those runners. Or sometimes the mother plant tries to produce berries on its own and won't give enough nutrients for those runners. So in order to get all of those new plants to produce a good amount of berries, you have to clip them so that they are their own plant, all right? So then they're gonna be a mother for next year. And that's kind of how you kind of can grow your strawberry patch really quickly, is by letting those runners go and just clipping them. Now, the main plants typically only last a couple years. So as you go through, you can see, like I just had pulled that one that was yellowing. I just pull those leaves as in the fall, as the season's done, and it kind of helps to just turn those strawberries around over and over again. All right, and if you're not clipping them, you don't have to, but you tend to not produce as many berries that way, and it's just not as healthy for the plants, that from my experience. All right, and I only have a couple years of this, but over the last couple years, that is what I've noticed has really helped take off. From the first year to the second year, doing that, it has really helped them take off. All right, and then the last, so I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna be just clipping all of the runners that I can find really quickly. It doesn't have to be all of them, but as many as you can. And then the last thing I'm going to do, all along the outside, I have runners that have branched outside of the row, if you would. So I've already picked a couple of them out as I was weeding, but I have pulled a couple of the runners. You can see these are nice plants. Look at that. And there's 2 attached. So I am going to simply clip them. Nope. So now I have 2 strawberry plants already just off of that one long runner. And what I like to do with these is I like to go through in those bare areas in the garden or in the patch that I showed you earlier, like right in there. There's some patches, there's some patches. This area seems to have a lot more empty patches because there was bigger weeds here. But I am going to go through and I am going to plant some of these runners. I'm going to dig up more and I'm going to plant them through there so that I can fill in the patches where there's not very many berries or very many plants. So, all right, so that kind of just helps to grow your strawberry patch nice and big and produce a ton of berries. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to finish clipping those runners. I'm going to plant some more, and then next spring we'll see how good our strawberries do. Stay tuned, because tomorrow, after I get the strawberries done, I am going to show you the rest of our fall harvest, or I guess not harvest. I'm gonna show you the rest of us getting things ready for the spring. We're gonna do our fall cleanup and get everything kind of ready for next year. And I may even let the chickens out a little bit, so we'll see them running around. All right, so stay tuned and I will see you back here another day. What about transplanting your strawberry plants? If you want to transplant strawberry plants or, you know, take them to another spot, if you're getting them from somebody, and the biggest thing is, do you do it in the spring? Do you do it in the summer? Do you do it in the fall? Again, strawberry plants can be planted at any time of the year, just like they can be weeded and the runners could be cut any time of the year. You can do it whenever. Now, if you're doing it in the spring, more than likely you won't have any berries produced that year. If you do it in the fall, same thing. You might not be able to get berries to produce the following spring, but sometimes you do if you're getting them from somebody that they are already well established, right? So I initially planted mine in the spring, and by that following year I had quite a few runners already. And then last year I got more strawberries from my cousin, and I took all of those runners and I replanted this big row here. Now I had two side by side all the way down, so I had quite a few, but this year I already have probably quadruple what I had the last year starting off. So and we got quite a few berries in the spring, so even just transplanting them and getting some new ones, I got some right away. So you can, if you find the established plants, can get them in the spring. So I tend to like to plant them in the fall, just like I do everything of my strawberries in the fall. That way in the spring it's less maintenance and I'm just more ready. I'm more ready to get those berries and get those strawberries going. So just food for thought on that one, when to transplant anytime, but I like the fall the best. All right, so then with that being said, I am going to go ahead and plant some of the ones from the outside of here. I am going to dig some and put them kind of sporadically in the center of the strawberry plants so that I can fill out some of those holes that were taken from the big weeds. All right, so to do that, all you have to do is, you don't have to dig much, but boy, you can see this one's here. I'm gonna kind of pull that runner off. Kind of comes over here into another one, which goes to another one, so I'm just going to pull that. It's crazy, they are everywhere. Once they start running, they run good. So off that little one on the side here, I got 3 more. One's in the ground, and it intertwined with another plant that had another 3 or 4 on there. So You want to make sure that you're separating them because each root system is its own plant, right? So make sure that you're separating them just like you would cut them. They don't have to be big ones. I have a couple nice size ones, and I have, where's that small one that I had? This one's a smaller root system. Oh, here's two here. Look at, this is a smaller plant, but it's still, look at all those roots. It'll create a whole thing of a whole nother plant and nice berries. I'm just filling in the space here. That is it. Nothing too special. This one here is kind of already coming out of the ground, probably from when I was weeding, so I'm just going to replant that right back in there. All right, and that's it. I'm going to finish planting these and kind of clean up the area. I'll show you one last shot so you can see what it looks like at the very end. But my strawberries are just about ready for next year. I can't wait. And there you have it, our beautiful strawberry patch row. Runners are cut, new plants planted, and it's weeded quite nicely. We are just about ready for the spring with our strawberries. So stay tuned because next video, we are going to start getting ready for rhubarb because I'm getting some rhubarb from a patient. We're going to plant the rhubarb. We are getting our garlic planted for the spring, and we are completely starting to finish up our fall harvesting and spring planting and getting things ready for next year. So stay tuned, subscribe and like the page. That way you can get all the updates of our garden as we finish this year out and start next year. We will see you next week.